Hey there, students. Yesterday I was looking at the news on the internet and I ran across this new Black Jesus show. And evidently this show is stirring up quite a bit of controversy. Now, fortunately, it's not because Jesus is being portrayed as black. We've moved beyond that. That's great. But it's more along the lines of people are upset because this Jesus is cursing like a sailor and smoking an inordinate amount of marijuana. But what I thought about as a history teacher was really if this had been 100 years ago, this would have been very controversial, not because of any behaviors, but because Jesus was portrayed as black. Because although Jesus was a Middle Easterner, traditionally in America, Jesus has been depicted in art as white European. And this was at a time 100 years ago. Think about this. I mean, 100 years ago, you had the movie Birth of a Nation was the highest grossing silent film ever, which glorified Ku Klux Klan activities, which was responsible for the rise of the Second Klan. And this was during an era of white supremacy, at a time when people actually thought that whites were genetically superior, more evolved than African Americans. And in the 1920s, there was this guy named Marcus Garvey. And Marcus Garvey was the leader of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. And he's most known as the father of the so-called Back to Africa movement. That's how a lot of people kind of trivialize what he was doing. But really, this was more than about going back to Africa. This was about black nationalism and black pride in a time where black Americans were told that you are not as good as white Americans. And so in an effort to encourage black nationalism and black pride, Marcus Garvey founded the Black Star Line, which he believed would one day take all of the Africans in the Americas back to Africa. And then he had the Black Cross nurses, kind of like the Red Cross nurses, except black, that he believed, let's take everything that is another color and let's make it black. And Marcus Garvey then decided that he was going to envision Jesus as black. Now think about this. Jesus, according to Christianity, is the Son of God. And if Jesus is portrayed as white European, then people see God as white European. And Marcus Garvey felt like this was a problem, that if black Americans were going to see themselves as equal, were going to see themselves in the image of God, that they should see Jesus as black. And he believed, hey, God doesn't have a color. But he said, look, if white people want to look at a white God, that's great. But from now on, I'm going to see Jesus as black. And this was very, very revolutionary 100 years ago. Just the very idea of envisioning Jesus as a black man. So now we finally reached a day where Jesus can be portrayed as black in a television series. And so I don't know if this new series would reach out to Marcus Garvey's sense of humor or anything like that. And, you know, not to trivialize any of the concerns that people have about the show, but it shows a great deal of progress that about 100 years from the time that Marcus Garvey initially envisioned Jesus as black, that we have a TV show. We've made progress. Anyway, those are my thoughts. If you want to hear more of them, learn a little more history, subscribe. Check out my website, tomrichey.net, Twitter, Instagram. I'll be back with some more history, some more thoughts pretty soon. Until next time.